Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to today's event. My name is Rob Strauss and I'm Special Collections and Archives Coordinator here in the University Library. Reminder for those of you who are in the room, we do have food and drinks in the back, so please be sure to get some if you're here. Before we go on to any of the specifics of being a library student assistant and such, I thought we would introduce the people on the panel. So I guess we can start there at the end.
Hi, I am Ping. I am the Acquisitions, Materials Management, and Student Coordinator for the Collections, Acquisitions, and Resource Discovery Services Unit, otherwise known as CARDS.
I'm Caitlin. I'm a CARD student assistant, and Ping is my boss.
And I'm Gabby. I'm the Customer Relations Coordinator for the Registrar's Office on campus.
My name is Jaime Serrano. I'm the Staff Management and Student Assistant Coordinator in Access Services.
I'm Ryan Rush. I am a part of our Library Technology Services Department. And then again, my name is Rob Strauss. I'm Special Collections and Archives Coordinator, and I'm the Student Lead in Special Collections and Archives. So there's a couple of reasons we wanted to hold today's event. First of all, today is National Library Workers Day, so it's a way to recognize the student assistants in the library and the important work they do for the library. We wouldn't be able to do a lot of the work and projects and stuff without their help. Second, we thought it would be a good opportunity to introduce students to the various options that there are for working in the library. When you come into the library, you probably see the students working at the Access Services desk, but there's a whole lot of other options and positions that are available in the library. So we'll be telling you a little bit about that today. Also, this is an opportunity to let you know about the timeline for our hiring of student assistants. Students might not know that we do actually hire during the summer. We post the positions during the summer. So we thought today would be a good opportunity to sort of let you know about this and the timeline and how that all works. And then finally, it's an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you have about being a student assistant. So we'll be taking questions at the end. And if you're on Zoom, feel free to put your questions in chat at any time and we'll go over those. So before we get into any of the specifics about how you apply and the positions about the student assistant positions, we're going to go around and talk about a little bit about what students do in each unit of the library. And we're going to probably start with the unit that hires the most student assistants, Access Services, and I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jaime.
So as Rob mentioned, many of you might have already interacted with one of our units, Access Services. Access Services, what Access Services is two main units. We have our circulation and staff management. Circulation and research help desk crew. Those are the students that you see when you first walk into the building. They'll be at the circulation desk immediately to the left when you walk in. They'll be the ones that you go to with any questions. You can get help with most of our services there, whether it's checking out a book, checking out tech lending stuff, or other resources that a lot of people don't know about. Our interlibrary loan. If we don't have a book here in the library, you can get it sent over from any other campus, and even overseas if need be. And then our course reserves. That is a service where your professors might place books over the in that collection, and you can check it out for a short period of time so that it ensures everyone else can get access to it. And then that one, like I said, is very customer service based. And then staff management, it's a little bit more behind the scenes, but these are the students that make the library look the way it does. They ensure that books are being sent back to the shelves so that you can find them when you're looking for them. Or if you need help looking for a book, they'll be the persons that you can go to. They also help out with our other services such as interlibrary loan. They prepare all the materials and get them ready to be sent out to other schools. So that's Access Services in a nutshell, but we do quite a bit of everything.
Okay, so before I go on to Special Collections and Archives, we think we passed over the slide. So this is a list of all of the various units in the library that hire student assistants. So we will now jump over to Special Collections and Archives. So again, I'm Special Collections and Archives Coordinator. How many of you have been to Special Collections and Archives? Have any of you ever been to Special Collections and Archives in the University Library? Great. So we're the unit that holds the materials you can't check out. It's a more rare, one-of-a-kind materials. You have to come into our reading room to use the materials. We have 4 collecting areas. One of them is University Archives, so it's the records of the university that tell about university history. There's photographs, there's presidential papers, things like that. A second collecting area we have is Pomona Valley Historical Collection, so it's materials, books, other materials that tell about the history of Pomona Valley. We also have the W.K. Kellogg Arabian Horse Library. So that is the records that tell about the history of Arabian horses on the campus, going back to the days of the Kellogg Ranch. We have correspondence, photographs telling that history, but also we have other records about Arabian horse ranches around California and the nation. And then finally is the Southern California Wine and Wine Industry Collection. So let me turn to what student assistants help us do in the library. So we're going to tell you what Special Collections and Archives is. So students assist with processing under the direction of units, staff, and faculty. They help with metadata, that is describing digital collections, digital images, things like that. So they'll write the description for that, put any other information that will be useful for researchers to find that particular digital asset. They also help shelve books. And they assist with the research questions. So if we get a research question, they'll sometimes do the background, trying to find information on that. And they help us with a whole bunch of other projects. And you can actually see that's one of our former student assistants there, who was working on a collection called the Polly Newell Papers, which actually recently, the finding aid for that recently got published. And going back to there, that's a couple of our student assistants. One is still a current student assistant. And actually one of those student assistants there is now a staff member in the library. So as you can see, as I mentioned, students help with process, and they also do get credit for helping with processing. So this is one of our collections that we recently put online, and the names in red are student assistants that helped on that project. So I will turn it over to cards and bring at the end.
The mouse, please. Thank you. So collections, acquisitions, and resource discovery services, otherwise known as CARDS. Literally, collections is everything you see out on the floor, as well as the digital stuff you see in our online catalog. And there's a whole list of A to Z databases, hundreds of them. Please take a look if you ever get a chance. So acquisitions, buying, resource discovery is literally the ability to find everything that the library has. So for cards, we are a backstage unit. Literally, we do everything that needs to get done so that you can see it on the front end when you log into a computer or when you go out to a shelf. And for our student assistants, they work in what we call our repair lab. So repair lab is actually an acronym, a very long one, for Repair, Processing, and Items Restoration Lab. It's a PolyX program, and that means we are a hands-on program that's meant for you to see what opportunities and challenges are in a specific kind of professional field. In this case, it's the field of technical services. And we have, for us, in Repair Lab, our students do 2 essential things. The RE in repair. We take books that look like this, that have their covers all separated, and we put them back together again. So we train our students to do this. So you don't have to come to us knowing actually how to do this. And then the P is processing. Processing is taking something that's just your regular item from a warehouse, from a bookstore, from a distributor, and then making it look like library item. We put a barcode on it so that students at the Access Services Circulation Desk can check it out so you can take it home. We put a call number label on it. These call number labels are representative of the item's location within the library. It's kind of like the book's address. So this makes sure that you can actually find it. And now we'll go to Brian. Yes.
So, hi, everybody. I oversee or work in our Library Technology Services Department. We are also a back, kind of like a back behind the scenes department. And some of the things that our students do is we do document and web accessibility of our websites. So any student research you might submit to the institutional repository, or theses or projects from graduate students, faculty work that gets submitted, we make it accessible for individuals using specialized equipment, screen readers, or anything else to properly access their work. We also do in-house scanning of a lot of special collections and archives materials, as well as some other requests, maybe some of our physical theses and projects when requested. And so these are a couple of the scanners that we use. And then once scanned, we again perform that accessibility on them. The LTS department also oversees a lot of the back end of like when you're searching on OneSearch, managing and maintaining those kinds of services throughout the library as well. Okay, so before we go on to our next part, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the student assistants and three other units of the area library do. So we do have student assistant and research and instruction services. They support with the development of educational learning materials such as video tutorials or research guides. They support with the maintenance and organization of library resources within the Bronco family space, and they assist the RIS unit in special projects and outreach opportunities. And then we also have student assistants and library administration that help the dean's office staff with various office duties and assist with university library events such as the therapy dog events, and students in shipping and receiving help our building coordinator with various tasks. So right now we're going to have a chance to hear from a current student assistant about what it's like to work as a student assistant. And I'm going to once again pass it on to my colleague at the end, Jake, to introduce one of our student assistants.
Oh, yes.
So once again, I'm Ping. This is my current student assistant, Caitlin. In cards, we actually kind of hire at different times of year. We've hired in summer once, we've hired in spring before, but we tend to hire in fall. Caitlin was actually one of our fall hires. So Caitlin, how long have you been working in cards now?
At the end of this semester, it will be 3 years. I was hired on fall of 2021.
And at the time that we hired you, did you ever work in a library before?
No. When I got hired on, I was 17. I was fresh out of high school. My only job experience was 1 week at a toy shop. So no experience.
So without any experience at all, we hired you for Repair Lab. And what have you learned since?
I've learned a lot of things, but I'm going to highlight a couple of things, a couple of my favorites. One thing that we do, Ping already talked about a couple of them. Sometimes the whole text block just comes straight out of the book. You can see the gauze there. What we do is just cut straight through that, take the whole thing out. And this bookcase is actually super nice. So we are actually able to put this text block straight back into the bookcase. And then that'll all be one piece. And then this is one that I did yesterday. This is what I get given, is just a book straight from the publisher or wherever we got it from with the book cover. And then I put all the stamps in. If you open the book, there are always stamps on the bottom right corner, if you can see that. And then I also put the clear cover on it. And then one more. Occasionally on a hardcover book, the spine just totally falls off. What we do is make a new one, but sometimes if the text is still readable and the whole thing has come off in one piece, then what we do is after we make a new spine with like cardstock, we glue it right back on over it.
And we do that in a lot of ways because we find that people actually like to look at a spine cover versus just a piece of black tape. So similarly, another thing that we like to do is we get these nice big oversized books and then everything on it decides to break because they're oversized. And they're kind of a little unwieldy to deal with. Some people don't particularly like them, but of the things that you've had to deal with, Caitlin, is there something that you really like or didn't like?
So on a hardcover book, the book can be made out of cardboard. And when cardboard gets soft, all of the layers come apart. That happens particularly on the corners, which is why on a lot of our books out on the collection, out on shelves, you'll see these tape corners. That happens when the cardboard gets soft and it starts splitting. What we actually have to do before we tape this is glue it together. That is my least favorite task of all time because you have to load a bunch of glue in between all the layers of cardboard and like squish it all together. It's awful. I hate it. That's my least favorite thing. But I love taping and I love making new spines because look how nice that looks.
So for students who like to work in the library, what would you recommend that they know or do?
To check Handshake. That is where all of our jobs are posted in the library, handshake.org. Keep your resume updated, keep checking. Because like, I don't remember who said it, they're always hiring. Like different intervals are hiring at different departments are hiring at different times. So check at the beginning of a semester, check at the end of the semester. They're always being posted.
All right. And is there anything you like to add? Not, we're gonna pass it back to Rob. Or actually, we're gonna pass it to Jaime.
Awesome. So with Gabby, she worked with us for in access services for a couple of years, and then she moved on to a different position, and is an example of us having to hire throughout the middle of the year. So as everyone here already has stressed enough, always check Handshake. But having said that, let's hear from Gabby a little bit. How long were you a library student assistant?
Thank you, Jaime. I was a library student assistant from the spring of 2021 to the spring of 2023, so just last year. So about 2 years. I was part of the team that transitioned the library from our virtual services into in-person services. So that was around the time where we were coming back in person from COVID. And so luckily the library was hiring at the time when I was transferring over as a transfer student from Cerritos. And I found myself here where for the first year and a half, I was working with Jaime downstairs in access services. My last semester, I was given the opportunity to find my way up here, working with administration. And that's where I was able to assist the library in other ways, not so much in the front counter facing ways anymore, but more so assisting the administrative level personnel.
Can you talk a little bit more in detail about the tasks that you would do, whether it was in access services or at the library administration office?
Yeah, sure. So the first year and a half when I was working downstairs, I was primarily assisting on day-to-day tasks when students would come in asking, can I check out this textbook that my professor put on hold? That is the service that Jaime mentioned earlier. I also would assist them in just checking out a book. So if a student grabbed the book from the shelf, I would check it out for them. I would also assist in any phone calls that came. Sometimes I would also assist at the research help desk because as also Jaime mentioned, with a circulation desk where it's a lot of more general questions versus the research help desk that's located near our IT area is more focused on students who need assistance in writing a paper or a research project, things like that. Where at that point, I would assist them as much as I could by guiding them to our online resources. And if I felt that they needed more in-depth and one-on-one help, I would then refer them to their librarian. Because as many of you may or may not know, we do have librarians who are assigned to specific subjects. So, English and social sciences, things like that. We would keep their contacts and let them know, hey, if you want to speak with a librarian further in detail about this, they're more than welcome to meet with you, and we would put them in contact with them. And then sorry, that was just my first year and a half. Going into my last semester was, as I mentioned, I was given the opportunity to work up here with the library administration. So from there, it was mostly assisting in events like these, where I would be the one setting up the table or exchanging emails on behalf of the library dean or the assistant to the dean, and making sure that these things went well, more behind the scenes of facilitating the event, setting it up, and any more office clerical things, maybe making copies, printing, things like that. But it really gave me an opportunity to hone my first year and a half, those customer service skills. And then my last semester was honing those more office clerical and support skills.
Awesome. And since you've been with us, you've since graduated and gotten a full-time position. How did your time at the library, how did it help you in your current position? Or has it helped you in your current position?
I would say I wouldn't have my current position if it wasn't for being a student assistant here. As I mentioned earlier, I am the customer relations coordinator for the registrar's office. Essentially, what that means is that I oversee now my own team of student assistants. So thanks to Jaime's guidance, I was able to implement what I observed being a student assistant myself. And I am now using that to guide my own student assistants who also cover customer service areas in our office, like the front counter phones, things like that. So being able to observe somebody in that capacity really did help me out, as well as my experience as student assistant. I'm able to apply that in how I guide their experience as my direct reports. In addition, just the fact that I gained those skills of customer service, so knowing, being able to translate those skills from there to the registrar's office, even though they both have different information, different services to provide, customer service essentially is the same across the board. Once you pretty much have those foundational skills, it's fairly easy to transition once you've learned all the information that the department has to offer. And I think it really did help being a student assistant when I applied for the position once I graduated in spring of 23, that they felt comfortable taking someone on, even though they were a new graduate, that they, I had high recommendations from the individuals I worked with, the Dean of the Library, Pat Hawthorne, you yourself, Jaime, all really helped me out putting in a good word for me. And I think they were comfortable knowing that I had that experience, not only as student assistant and the degree that I received, but also knowing that I already had that those connections on campus and that I wouldn't be coming fresh from, let's say, a private or even another Cal State.
Speaking of connections on campus, we do know that as student assistants, you guys are also students. You guys have your own student life. How would you say that your employment at the library influenced or impacted your overall student college experience?
Yeah, so it was a great influence on my overall college experience. As I mentioned, I was a transfer student. So I only really spent about 2 years on campus. And the primary reason why I was looking for a position was because, as many of you may or may not know, as a commuter, I didn't live on campus and I had already finished most of my college requirements elsewhere. So coming here, mostly everybody was almost done with their degree. I didn't really have any other connections to make since I wasn't living here. I didn't live nearby here. So I really wanted a way to connect with this campus that I felt really grateful to be given acceptance to Cal Poly. And I thought, I want to prove that I'm a valuable asset to the school itself and let me immerse myself in the culture. And I thought, why not do that by seeing what opportunities there are through employment? And so I checked handshake. And that's where I was able to find the position. And when I got the call from Jaime, it was pretty much a highlight for the entire semester, knowing that I could make those connections with my fellow students, maybe not so much after class activities, but at least being here, working and serving them in that capacity.
Awesome. One last question. What recommendations would you have for people who want to become a student assistant?
After checking handshake, because I don't think that's been said enough. Well, yeah, but I would definitely encourage students that once they do apply for the position, and if they are hired for the position, to really make the effort to make those connections. I really can't stress that enough, because you could come here and you can clock in and do your work and do excellent work. And of course, that's, what's expected of you. But I think going beyond that, investing in your future by making those connections with the librarians, with other staff, with other faculty. Let's say you don't want a position here on campus, and that's perfectly fine, but those connections will still help you later on in life. Let's say you want to prepare for an interview somewhere else off campus. You can reach out to your lead and say, hey, could you provide me some insight on when I was working here as a student, what worked, what didn't work, even as a reference. So I think overall building those connections, I know if you're shy, it can be fairly difficult, but going out of your comfort zone and putting in that extra effort is going to, in the long run, really help you putting that investment in yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think now we're going to go on to some of the specifics about how you become a library student assistant and how you apply to become a library student assistant. So we'll go on to the next slide here, and I'm going to pass it over to, again, to Jaime and Ping, who are going to take over this section.
Cool. All right, so yeah, let's talk about how to become a library student assistant. Okay, so first thing you need to know is that there are a couple campus requirements. The first one being that you're enrolled in at least 6 units for the academic school year. This means fall and spring. If you do get the chance to work with us and you're planning on staying over the summer, it's not necessarily a requirement that you're enrolled in classes. But working at the library also does kind of depend on if there is work for you all to do. And during the school year, there is a maximum of 20 hours per week that you can work. And again, over the summer or when it breaks, you might have the chance to work over the 20 hours per week, but no more than 40. Okay, so a couple of dates to keep in mind. Let's talk about the hiring timeline. After you check Handshake, if you decide to apply, let me step back a little bit. Yes. You should be checking Handshake about 4 to 6 weeks before the semester starts. With the exception of summer, over the summer, we do like to get our postings up a little bit earlier for the fall semester. And that might mean that we might be posting at the end of June or early July at the latest. We do have to have our Handshake posting up for at least 3 days. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't mean that we'll be only keeping up for 3 days, but some of our units do have to hire ASAP because we do have to get whether it's a background check, depending on the position, and that can add an additional 2 to 4 weeks to the whole hiring process. So again, keep an eye out for Handshake. After the position closes and the team gets the chance to review all the applications, you should be hearing back from us. If we decide to interview you, you'll hear from us, whether it's a phone call or an email. But the interview will typically be either via Zoom, or we have had some students come in person, just because they prefer that face-to-face contact. But having said all that, always keep an eye out on your Handshake once you do apply, because Handshake will update the status of the application. And then, as a tip too, always be prepared to let us know what the hours you are able to work. Some of our postings will ask for hours of availability. But if not, be prepared to talk about that during the interview. And we move on to Ping.
So you've successfully passed the first interview, which means we will be forwarding your name onto our peer manager for staff, in this case, Jean Brooks in the corner. And you get another interview with her. And that interview is typically via Zoom, so it is virtual. And it's usually scheduled for 30 minutes. Whether it takes that or not is going to be up to you. But if you have any questions at all about the library, any questions, concerns, comments, please feel free to bring that to the interview. So now you've successfully passed interview number 2. which means paperwork. No joke, lots of paperwork. And this is the part where we put in pro tip number 2. Have your Adobe signature already set if you haven't already, because the forms are PDF fillable forms. So usually you just need to click, authorize it, and send it back. So be on top of your email. And as the student coordinators, we actually will review all applications before we forward it on to HR. Once we determine that your applications are complete, HR will then contact you, and they will set you up with an appointment to do the rest of the hiring process. And this is going to be where you might get a call from a blocked number. So if you see a phone number pop up that says 909-869 ... answer it. It's probably human resources. If they can't reach you via phone, they will also try to send you the same information via email. So also be on top of your email. The other slight recommendation, slight small one, is to make sure that if you are putting your mobile number on your resume or application, please make sure your voicemail inbox is set up. Because there are times when we try to call and your voicemail inbox is full or not functioning, which won't help you get a job. So please make sure that that is set up. After human resources does their thing, it gets forwarded over to payroll, who will add you into the state system and who will create your timesheet. And then they will also send you an email saying, congratulations, you are ready to work. And once you get that ready to work email, then you will forward that on to the student assistant coordinator for the department that hired you, to let them know that, hey, you are approved and ready to go. And they need to know that because the very last thing is a library-wide student assistant orientation. This happens in August. It is in person. So you will be paid for your time if you are hired and this process gets successfully finished before that date. So we want to make sure that that happens. So you do get paid to come to orientation. And on orientation day itself, there's the library-wide one, and then there's also your unit orientation. So. I have no mouse skills today. All right. So this is the summary. Feel free to not write this one down. If you wrote your email on the sign-in sheet, we will send you a copy of the slide deck. So first off, the University Library welcomes all majors. You do not have to be of a specific college department to apply for a University Library Student Assistant position. We do appreciate enthusiasm though. So no prior experience, but enthusiasm always appreciated. Training is typically going to be provided by the unit that will hire you. These are just the recap of the university requirement. You do have to have a minimum 2.0 GPA in your major as well as overall. Be enrolled during that for the 6 units during the academic year. And if you have more than one on-campus job, or this will be your second on-campus job, just remember the campus has a max 20 hours per week. So if you have 2 jobs, always talk to your student assistant coordinator to see whether you can swing the hours that you want to get scheduled. And it cannot be said enough, apply in Handshake. And you can access Handshake by going into your MyCPP under the Online Services tab. If you don't have it favorited, then you can find the Handshake app. So, we do post our jobs about a month and a half before each semester. So our fall jobs are going to be posted probably late this June, or as Jaime said, early July, but probably late June. Starting pay rate depends on your position, but typically we start at state minimum wage, which is $16. But check the job post for details. And then mandatory training in August. All right. And that is actually it for me. So do you have any questions for us? Or is there any questions in the Q&A?
We've gotten a couple of questions in the chat. So somebody did ask about applying for a library student assistant position, which we did in that section. But if there's anything else they want to know, they can add to that question. And then somebody asked how they can see what positions are open. And again, just check Handshake. Well, you'll see all the positions. As Jaime mentioned, we'll usually start posting at end of June. So definitely start checking at that time. Did anyone in here have any questions that they wanted to know? Yes.
For the Handshake, will the employer list be listed as CPP library or something along those lines?
Yeah, we also do it by each unit. So each unit posts their own position. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can also put in the search as Cal Poly Pomona University Library.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yes.
And it's fine for a student who's interested in working in the library to apply for multiple positions in different units. Correct.
Yes. Yes.
I just want to say we encourage federal work study. We're totally awesome, fine with that. If you have work study, follow the same procedures, right?
Yes.
The paperwork will be a little bit different. You're working for the, there's a
Paperwork on our end is a little bit different.
because we're gonna hire you for 2 jobs, basically, so we can make sure you always get paid, but we really are great with that and encourage it.
Oh, wait a minute. Slide deck. So somebody's asking if the slide deck will be available to those on Zoom, and yes, we can. I believe we could get the information correct that we can email it out to them. Yeah. So we can. Okay. Yeah. So we will be able to send the slide deck to people on Zoom as well. Did anyone else here have any questions? Yes.
I must have missed it. Where do you go to apply again?
Handshake.
On CPP, online services tab, look for Handshake. Actually, just go ahead and when you're in your MyCPP online services, all those specific applications in the top right-hand corner, there's going to be a little star. Go ahead and star that so that it shows up in your favorites feed. That way you don't have to go looking for it again.
So if we don't have any more questions, if you want to move to the final slide. So this is our contact information at the very end here. And we do have some business cards up here if you'd like to take some. Please just contact us if you have any specific questions about working in our unit. That's our contact information up there. And any questions that occur to you after, please reach out to us as well, and we can answer those questions. One final thing I'll say is that this is just one event as part of National Library Week. So we will be holding other events in the library this week for National Library Week. So please check those out on, I believe, the library website, the events calendar.
And follow us on Instagram.
And follow us on Instagram. So thank you so much again for coming today. And again, reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Yes.
I want to thank the panelists and the students, past and present, who have spoken here. My name is Pat Hawthorne. I'm the Dean of the Library. I want to thank all the students for coming. We can't run the University Library without student employees. You're an essential part of our workforce because we're open 89.5 hours every week, and our staff are not here all those hours. And so you're very much engaged in the services and operations of the library. So we really value your contributions, but we also really enjoy the fact that we often get to hire students as freshmen and watch you go through your whole degree program, or as transfer students and graduate. And we celebrate that as much as we can. So we hope you'll consider us as a future employer. And thank you for coming.